before they present, I have a couple of things I want to share with you. There's going to be an email address that our wonderful PIO, he's going to put in the chat. I want you guys to interact with the chat throughout the whole thing. A lot of content will be coming through. So the email address is not only in the chat, but it'll also be in the PowerPoint that our HR personnel will be using, which we will drop in the chat at the end of the presentation. Again, the email address is crucial. This is how you stay connected with us. And then part two, that PowerPoint, that's going to have a lot of information. So stay put till the end. And also, here's one house rule. I know you guys will have questions as we go through different segments. And a lot of these segments are very informative. Please put those questions in the chat. And the way that we're going to answer it, at the end, you're going to have a breakout group with our wonderful firefighters. I want you to wait till the end, anticipate, because that's the time where you can really pick their brains. Hopefully, they can pick up some of these questions and try and answer them. And even at the end, before we close, we as a group will try to answer some of these questions. But the one thing we won't do is to answer them immediately. But if the questions do come up, please do put it in the chat. Okay, so before our first presenter, I have two questions. I want to get to know you guys and to welcome you, so engage with me. What industry are you currently in or have been in? For example, hospitality, healthcare, construction, you're a student, military. Put that in the chat, everybody. I'll give you about 30 seconds. Okay. We got some talented people in the audience here. I see student, hospitality, physics, represent fire EMS. Good stuff. Oh, butcher master. I like that. Okay. Keep it going. We got a diverse group here, and this is great. Wildland Fire, represent. Okay, workforce development. You're speaking my love language. There you go. Fire department, another state. Excellent. Okay, for our second question, if you haven't answered the first one, you can go ahead. But for our second question, what city do you currently live in? And if this is Seattle, Tacoma, even outside of the state, even outside of the country, go ahead and put that in the chat. There you go. Everybody's representing here. I like this. Okay. There's some cities I like here on the list. Somebody say Germany. Oh, that's amazing. Okay. Oh, Los Angeles, that's where I'm from. So thank you for that representation. Love it. Seattle all day. Wonderful. Yeah, thank you so much. Go ahead and put more answers if you haven't. So again, put questions in the chat as you listen through each segment. And we'll try to get to some of them. And for some reason, your question doesn't get answered, go ahead and email us, and then we will provide an answer in a timely manner. Hopefully that won't happen. Let's get to our first presenter, Hannah Costin from the HR division here at SFD. She's going to be sharing with us the application process. A lot of intricacy, a lot of details here. We're going to be using a PowerPoint so you guys can have something to look at. So Hannah, take it away.
Hi, thank you so much for having me. My name is Hannah. I work in the HR division of the Seattle Fire Department, and I manage the entry-level firefighter hiring process. Next slide, please. Okay, just a quick overview of the Seattle Fire Department. We're a nationally recognized leader in the fire and emergency services. We're also the largest fire department in the state of Washington, and we have an average annual response of about 90,000 per year. And honestly, that's growing. We had more than that last year, and I think we're going to have more than that this year. In order to keep our operations division staffed and continue to provide service to the Seattle community, the department onboards 2 recruit classes of about 30 new recruits each year. So generally we'll have a new recruit class of 30 in February and then a new recruit class of 30 in August. And then we'll increase those numbers as needed depending on what our staffing needs are. Our hiring process is very competitive, and because of the public safety standards and the number of applicants involved, at times it can be very complex. So the intent of today's presentation is to familiarize you with the process and to answer any additional questions you have. Next slide. Okay, and then just a quick overview of the benefits of joining our department. In order to cultivate a talented and diverse workforce, we do offer several employee benefits. First up is schedule. Seattle firefighters typically work 8 24-hour shifts a month with either 2 days or 4 days off between shifts. This gives them a lot of time to spend with their families, with their friends, and it also affords them the opportunity to, move to an area that's a bit trickier to get to Seattle because you're not commuting in and out every single day. So it's a very big difference from your usual Monday through Friday 9 to 5 shift. Advancement opportunities, in addition to promotional opportunities such as promoting to lieutenant or captain, Seattle firefighters can also apply for a number of specialty and technical teams such as hazardous materials, tech rescue, paramedic, marine unit, and arson investigations. Starting salary, recruits start at $6,800 a month and will have increases at 6, 18, 30, and 42 months, and then an annual wage increase negotiated by the union. And then they receive premium pay for various roles that they can fill as well, such as those specialty teams or driver. Medical and retirement. Seattle firefighters receive a left to pension, family, medical, and dental insurance, vacation, comp time, and sick leave. And they can also take advantage of a deferred compensation plan through the city, 4 weeks of paid parental leave, tuition reimbursements, paid military leave, and employee assistance programs. Our department also has a very robust peer support team to help support our members' well-being, as well as a critical incident stress management team to lend extra support following a traumatic incident. Next slide. Okay, minimum qualifications. So in order to be hired as a Seattle firefighter, candidates must meet the following qualifications. They have to have a high school diploma or GED, a valid driver's license, be able to communicate in English, be at least 18 years old, and have a Washington State EMT certification, and meet or exceed the established standards of the hiring process. Regarding the EMT certification, candidates may submit an application if they're not already EMT certified. It's just that they have to be certified in Washington State in order to be considered for final hire into a recruit class. Because as you'll see, our hiring processes tend to take several months. Several candidates are able to complete an EMT course before their hire date. The department will periodically also offer an in-house EMT course for candidates who have received conditional offers, but spots are limited in those instances and participation isn't guaranteed. And then candidates who are certified in other states are able to gain reciprocity in Washington State following a conditional offer. Next slide. Okay, so just an overview of how you join the register that we'll be hiring from. After submitting an application during an open application period, next of which would be fall of 2024, candidates will receive instructions on how to complete the fire team test and the public safety suitability assessment through the National Testing Network. If a candidate passes these portions of the tests, they'll be invited to participate in an oral board interview. The results of the assessments and the interview are combined with any veteran scoring criteria that might apply, and that score will be used to rank the candidates on a firefighter register. Registers are usually used to hire recruit classes for at least 2 years. Once the register is expired, a new application period will open and we'll accept new applications to create a new register. Anyone who's interested in employment with the Seattle Fire Department is highly encouraged to apply during the open application period that next comes up, since they won't have an opportunity to do so for several years. Next slide. Okay, so hiring timeline. Once the hiring register is established, the process of hiring a new class usually takes several months. At the beginning of the process, the top 25% of the register will be invited to complete pre-conditional assessments. The results of these assessments will help determine who will be invited to participate in an employment interview and be considered for a conditional offer. Candidates selected through the interview process will then need to complete several post-conditional assessments prior to receiving a final offer and being placed in a recruit class. Once a class is hired, the HR department will refresh the hiring list, adding names from the existing register onto the active hiring list that we're working with to get us back up to 25% of the total register. And then we'll start the preconditional assessment process again. Hiring processes usually take 6 months from start to finish, and typically 4 classes are hired from each firefighter register. So like I've said, we anticipate the next application period will open in the fall of 2024. So the first hiring process from the new register will begin during early 2025, and we're aiming to hire the August 2025 recruit class from that register. Okay, next slide. Okay, and then a few more details about the pre-employment screening process. So the first step in the process is we will ask candidates to complete and submit an employment packet, which will include their job history, certifications, resumes, and any additional materials that they wish to include. If you submit an application, you'll notice that you're not asked to include a lot of information in your initial application. And that's because we want to collect it at this time, especially because you may have gained additional experience or certifications in the time between submitting your application and being considered for hire. Candidates will also be invited to complete a suitability assessment and a candidate physical ability test. The suitability assessment is made up of a series of questionnaires which evaluate a candidate's personal history, personality style, and emotional stability. The CPAT consists of 8 critical physical tasks, which simulate an actual firefighter's job duties and help determine if candidates meet the standard of physical fitness required to perform in the fire service. Following these assessments, candidates will be selected to complete an in-person interview with a panel of Seattle Fire employees. This interview will determine whether or not a candidate receives a conditional offer for the next class. In addition to the conditionally offered recruit candidates, the panel will also select several candidates who will be offered a position if one of the recruit candidates withdraws from the process. So an alternate candidate that we would ask to join the class if for whatever reason one of our selected candidates is no longer available to join the class. After the conditional offers, candidates will complete a medical assessment, a psychological assessment, and a background check before receiving a final offer. They'll also attend a gear fitting at our services warehouse and will work with our EMS coordinator to ensure that their EMS certifications meet Washington state requirements. So at this time, this is when anyone who has an out-of-state EMT certification will go through the process of gaining reciprocity in Washington state. Just a heads up for candidates who are out of state, there are a few points during the hiring process where you would be required to travel in state, such as coming in for the interview. You can take the CPAT in any NTN location, but you might not have a location in your state, so you might need to travel for that. And then when would you need to come in person for the medical assessment and the gear fitting? However, we can be pretty flexible and schedule those 2 assessments back to back or close days, so you only need to make the one trip in during the post-conditional screening process. Next slide. Okay, once hired, all candidates must successfully complete our in-house paid recruit training program. In addition to classroom instruction, this program includes practical training in firefighting techniques and equipment use. Our 15-and-a-half-week program is known as a hands-on and drill-intensive program. Recruits are evaluated daily and must successfully complete all of the elements in order to graduate. Following recruit school, recruits are assigned to an operations division to complete their probationary year. And then upon successful completion of their first year, they'll receive a Firefighter 2 certification and permanent appointment as a firefighter. Next slide. So I won't get into this too much because we already have so many great operations members who can tell you a bit more about what it's like to be on the job. But as you'll hear from them, and as you can see, there's a lot of opportunities to explore different avenues and to do different things within the operations division. Obviously, we perform a lot of basic life BLS services, but there's also our paramedic program providing ALS services. We have a really robust fire prevention program, so inspectors or arson investigators has hazardous materials mitigation, disaster response. Once you're in the department, there's a lot of different directions that you can build your career. Okay, next slide. Okay, so obviously we recognize that our department's hiring process can seem very complicated and a bit daunting, but the HR division is always available to answer any questions that you might have. If you visit our website, and I would highly encourage this, you can sign up to receive a notice of when the next application period begins and any other relevant updates on the hiring process. I'm the one that manages the mailing that or the emails that go out through that, and I'm not going to flood your inbox with anything that's not important. I'm only going to tell you when the application period opens up and then anything that it's really important for you to know about the application process. So go ahead and sign up for that and you'll be guaranteed to receive an email letting you know when the application period opens up so you don't miss it. Our website also has a lot more information on the process, and we've included a lot of training materials for prospective candidates. So if you're trying to figure out what you need to do to get yourself ready or to improve or what you can be expected to have to accomplish, I would say start there and take a look at the training materials that we've provided. Questions can be directed to email at sfd.recruitment@seattle.gov. And then if you want to speak to someone over the phone, you can also call our headquarters during business hours and ask to be connected with a member of the HR team. Okay, that is all of my presentation, so I will hand it off to the next presenter. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Hannah. Wealth of information. Again, having been through the ringer myself in Los Angeles almost 2 decades ago, again, this information seems very daunting, but when you go through step by step with a collective and a support behind you, and that sense of motivation and discipline, you'll get through each step. And when you get to the end zone, it's an amazing feeling that you've accomplished something. You got into a fire department. So keep that in mind. It takes step by step, but you can do it. Thank you so much, Hannah. This PowerPoint, we will put it in the chat at the end of the presentation. And next up is Julie George from HR Division. And she will be sharing with us the preparation process and sharing a lot of her insight. Julie, take it away.
Hi, thank you for having me. Next slide. So this is much, I tell people in order to get prepared is plan, prepare, and practice over and over and over again. So you build up your confidence, especially if you don't have anything fire related in your background or know of anybody personally who is a firefighter. Next slide, please. So one of the things I tell people, if you really don't have anything in your background, starting from ground zero, is search the internet. There is tons and tons of information on the internet. Learn as much as possible about becoming a firefighter, knock on doors and talk with as many firefighters as you can, whether it's in Seattle, your neighborhood, a different state. And once you start talking to people, you're going to start to hear common denominators. And at that point of common denominators, then you're going to take a look at your skill set and your experiences on your resume. And you're going to start to put these things together on your resume. On your resume, include any volunteer work that you've done, include any team sports that you've participated in. Look back at, some of the tools and things that you have used. Any committees you may have participated in, volunteer work that you've done, and provide, anytime you get the opportunity, be sure and provide really strong examples of your previous experiences where you've used these tools or skills. Next slide, please. Practice your interviewing skills. A lot of people can say, yep, I do a really good job, but be able to sit down for 5 minutes and talk about why you want to become a firefighter. What does it mean to you? I find that sometimes people coming out of the military are a little bit short in their answers because that's the style that the military used. Sit down. I tell people, write out your answer. We all can do it in our head, even myself. But if I was to sit down and do it, I myself would have to practice. And I sit on tons of interview panels. Write out your answer. read it out loud, time yourself. That gives you time to go back and add more things in. And then after a while, you start to get used to this process. Another good process that people use for interviewing skills is called the STAR method. And you can find that on the internet too. You can research entry-level firefighter questions on the internet. There's tons of them, and there's questions and answers. Start to look at those. How do you fit into those questions and answers, and be able to pull over from your past experience and talk about it in the process. Practice with a partner. I find practicing with somebody you don't know is a little bit better because they're going to give you real feedback. The writing method is another good way that I just talked about to do it. And seek feedback from individuals. Next slide, please. And these are things to consider as you're going through all of these processes. Next slide. Oh, did we lose it? So here's a bunch of things that I say to be considered is when you come into a process that is super competitive, make sure that your actions match your words. A lot of people are going to remember that. If they don't, and it's very evident when it happens that it doesn't. Start watching things like don't get traffic tickets. Because if you're in a process where it's down to 2 people and you got 5 tickets and he has none, you're going to go to the bottom of the list. Drinking and driving. Don't drink and drive if you are looking to do this as a job. There is a list on our website of how long you have to wait until your DUI is passed before you can apply again. Be sure and when you come into places, be ready to go. Have all your things together. Stay out of physical altercations. If you have had challenges in your past, show your growth on your resume. Be forthright about it. Yep, when I was 18, I made this mistake. This is what I've done to grow from there. Be humble. Be curious about things. You can take CPR classes now that are free to be comfortable with part of the processes. And think about how can you set yourself apart from the competition out there? What is special in your inventory that will make a difference? Take care of your mind and your body. This job is not only, it's very taxing on your physical fitness and your mind. Make sure you eat well, be healthy, get exercise, get the sleep. And what else do I have to say? I always say that you can call us and ask us anytime for any questions that you have. In addition to talking to people in your community, if you need help with something as easy as a resume, go talk to a librarian. There's a lot of people out there that can help you get forward with things that you may need some help with. If you're out of suggestions, I always tell people if you've looked all over the internet, you're still needing some help, feel free to give us a call and we're here to help you. That's what I have. Thank you.
Thank you, Julie. Lots of practical wisdom. Julie's been in the Seattle Fire Department for a while. She's seen a lot of that blueprint for success. So take all that in. I think that's very practical tips that actually I could even apply on a day-to-day. So thank you so much, Julie. Next up is Manny Romero. He's our occupational health coordinator. And he's going to be giving us a lot of advice and tips on how to prepare physically. He currently oversees a program called Fire Prep. If you haven't heard about it, go on our website and look into it. So Manny, take it away.
Thanks, John. Hey, everybody. Good afternoon. Again, my name is Manny. My background is exercise science and strength and conditioning. So one of the things, like John had mentioned, is that I do for the department is oversee our Fire Prep program. That program is kind of geared towards helping individuals prepare for our drill school, but also for a career in the fire service. That program typically takes place about maybe for some of you now, or when you're in our hiring process, just to kind of start showing you best practices for preparation. one of the big things that the program likes to emphasize is physical training. And that's also a big thing that you can emphasize now, whether or not you're physically ready to do the job, right? So some areas that are worth exploring is if you haven't been in a weight room before, start getting familiar with some compound exercises, some compound lifts, things like a deadlift, a squat, a bench, those types of things. If you're into lifting styles, maybe start looking into powerlifting, start looking into Olympic weightlifting. But even though strength is very important for this job, there's also the conditioning piece and the aerobic capacity piece. So I'm not saying you need to go out and run miles and miles every day, but start doing something to improve your level of conditioning, because that's going to be huge, especially when it comes time to complete our drill school, but also to keep you healthy throughout your career. Some other things that you can probably do that are unrelated to physical training, if you haven't already, start working trades. If you're not familiar with hand tools, get familiar with those. Let's see. I think that's all I really got, John. Do you have any specific questions for me, or
You see, he
anything else?
models humility. He's got a lot of knowledge. I'm going to pick your brain a little bit. Maybe tell them a little bit about the success of fire prep, what you see kind of in continuity. What are some signs of success? What is it, discipline? Is it motivation? What helps individuals get to that next level that you've seen?
Yeah, it's actually a good point. I have a few of those on my notes here that are probably unrelated to fitness, but maybe they kind of are, right? So some good things that definitely help with success are, mindset and grit. So and also, having good leadership skills. So if you've been on sport teams, you might start to kind of understand what I mean by having that right mindset of getting prepared, being in the zone when it's time to perform. So those are the types of things that, if you haven't already, you can start trying to work on. Leadership skills is also big too, right? So if you haven't had a chance to lead and manage teams to some capacity, that's something I'd recommend getting some exposure to, because that also helps out a little bit with decision making, which is a big piece of this career. I'll recommend a book on leadership that I thought has made an impact on me, just kind of as I progress throughout my career. Extreme Ownership by Jocko Willink. That's a really good book to look into. He also has a podcast where he talks a lot about leadership principles and concepts. So, if you're into that type of thing, I'd recommend looking into that as well.
Manny, one more question. I already wrote the book's name down, but what about cardio? Maybe speak to what's a good way to train your cardiovascular in terms of firefighting. What do you recommend?
Yeah, so the few different ways, right? The big thing there is you want to maybe find a way to understand what your maximum heart rate is, because from there you'll be able to prescribe specific training zones that you want to maintain and be in. So an example, if let's just say my max heart rate was about 190 beats per minute, ideally for aerobic capacity, you want to be around zone 2, zone 3, which is about 60%, 70% intensity. So you do the math on that, you figure out a little bit of a training range, and that's where you kind of want to be for an extended period of time, 15, 30 minutes. Specific things you can do: you can get on a rower, you can go out for a run, you can be on a stair climber, right? Those types of things. Interval training, those types of things. The big misconception with aerobic training, though, is that people usually think it needs to be very high intensity, but that's not really what you're looking for there.
Okay, those are some very, very helpful tips. Thank you so much, Manny. Okay, so you guys got a lot of information there. One reminder that I forgot to mention in the beginning, this session is being recorded, and it will also be posted on our YouTube channel afterwards. So if the information that you missed, you can kind of touch base again later on. So FYI. So here's the treat for you guys. We have a couple of firefighters in the house, hard working, wonderful firefighters who will be sharing a lot of their wisdom, their day-to-day, what helped them, what's their success story, what is something that they like about the job, and what advice would they have for you guys as you're considering this career. So first up is firefighter Rory Agu. Take it away.
Hello. Yeah, my name is Rory Agu. Just got off of probation, so I went through this process starting in 2019. It was a very interesting process for me. I have a background in sales and marketing. And I haven't been back to school in about 15 years. So going through the process and testing and getting my mindset kind of like what Manny talked about was very hard and challenging at times. I had no experience in the fire service at all going to this. I would say that I did have a couple friends, family members, through meeting people, being in sales. I was able to connect with a lot of people in the fire service, and that's how I actually got interested in it. After hearing it over and over and all again, that it could be a good fit for me. So I decided to take the chance to actually apply myself. So not having the experience or the background, I think Seattle helped quite a bit with that. Some of the things that Hannah talked about, and the EMT program, I actually went through that as well as myself, the in-house. So I was able to see how the program works and what mindset to be in and how to relearn study habits that I had back in the past. But yeah, I think that's all I have. If you have any other questions.
I do. What what are a few things that you like about the job? Maybe share some of that.
For me, I like the fact that everything nothing's the same. So I go into every day and not knowing what I'm going to get into. I do have a background in playing soccer at a high level overseas and in the United States. So I'm used to a fast pace, being in a fast paced environment. That's kind of what I have here every day. I'm currently at work right now. So, if something happens, then, we just go and you're there to help people. So it's very rewarding. So I think that's another reason why I like the job. Being in sales, I made more money, but it wasn't fulfilling for me. So when COVID happened, just like a lot of other people, I was able to actually sit down and prioritize what I want in life. And that's kind of how I also got here as well.
Okay. You guys can get to know Firefighter Agu in the breakout room. Have those questions ready for him. Next up, we have Firefighter Jason Perez, and he will tell us a little bit about his story, his background, a few things that he loves about this job, and maybe an advice that he has for you guys. So take it away, Jason.
Hey guys, Jason Perez. I'm currently at Engine 25 on B shifts, meaning I just came off shift yesterday. We ran about 29 calls, didn't sleep at all, and that's kind of the nature of the job here in Seattle. You sign up here, you show up to do work. So my story is a little bit different. I was 42 when I was hired by the Seattle Fire Department. I graduated in 2001 from UC Berkeley with a degree in history and poli-sci. So with that, I actually went into sales and business development for about 10 years afterwards, and had a pretty good career there. But what really made me want to become a firefighter is, and I'll date myself a little bit here, is I grew up watching that show Emergency, born and raised in LA. So I always wanted to be a firefighter, but I really knew how to get into it. But my parents lived right by Angeles National Forest. So wildfires hit there and we had to help evacuate them a lot. And I can't tell you that feeling you have when you're basically grabbing all your stuff and running away, watching the firefighters go in there, going towards the fire. You kind of feel sick to your stomach getting out there with them, doing something about it. So that's kind of what drove me really to just say, hey, you know what, I like my career, but at the same time, I'm not doing what I love. So what I ended up doing is I became a firefighter in Honolulu, Hawaii prior to moving here. And through a large amount of help from Hannah, who is incredibly good at what she does. And generally, I'll say this about everybody here who's on this call, they generally care about getting good people into this department and kind of putting them in good places. But I was able to transition from Honolulu, Hawaii to Seattle about 9 days before drill school started, and basically I'm loving every second of it. My family's here, we love it. It's incredible. But that's basically how I got here. As far as advice to what I give, kind of prepping for it, is make sure you're committed to it. This is an incredible organization that does more than I think any department in the country to grant you access to the tools you need to succeed. But that being said, it's up to you to be willing to aggressively pursue that. And again, that starts with Hannah in HR. She's going to work her tail off to make sure you get the opportunities to get your stuff in and get stuff taken care of. Manny Romero running the fire prep and the C prep, giving you a chance to get out there, get hands on fire tools, get hands on the hose lines and kind of experience and kind of do the stuff they expect in drill school. Even a PO Dave, I mean, you see him on scene and he's dialed in, he knows what we're doing, he knows where we're going. So you're not going to find a more professional organization. And I think probably the best compliment I've ever heard about Seattle Fire Department is that even our, what we'd consider average firefighters would be considered elite somewhere else. So it's a hell of an organization to be a part of. It's something I'm very proud to be a part of. I had a wonderful career in Honolulu. It was outstanding. Nothing but good things to say about them and that department, but it's an honor to be here, and I truly consider it and I treat it as such. So definitely take your health and fitness seriously. Diet's huge, sleep is huge. Interval training is good, and what I'd say more importantly is get used to being uncomfortable. What we do, but really kind of gets the people in drill school and everything else, is the heat factor and the heart rate. So get used to being uncomfortable, kind of work on that. And yeah, I mean, honestly, just as long as you're committed, there's a way to do it, and take advantage of the opportunities given to you.
Thank you, Firefighter Perez. Not only well-educated, well-traveled, man, you're in the right profession, right city. Thank you so much. So here's what we're going to do next. We're going to go a little deeper. The group is about 60 people. So we're going to split into two groups of 30. And you guys get to meet with these firefighters and just kind of have those questions. Even if it's something vulnerable, ask him. And get to know them a little bit, and hopefully a lot of their answers can serve and to be a motivation for you. If there are certain technical questions, even ask those things. Allow this moment where you can interact and kind of feel at peace, because maybe this is a job for you. Maybe you can see yourself in this firefighter. And so let's break out into our groups. David, send us to our rooms and we'll go from there. And then we'll come back and we'll finish out the session.
All right, everyone should be back in. They should be trickling into the main meeting now.
All right, welcome back, folks. I hope you guys got a lot of insight and some helpful tips. If you could put something in the chat before we close out our session, what is one thing that you've learned in this virtual session? Go ahead and put that in the chat. What was a helpful tip or something that you take away from this? I'll give you guys 30 seconds. If it's all kinds of stuff, you could put everything. I know being a firefighter, it requires a lot in the beginning, but as mentioned, once you get to that end zone, it's a very exciting career. David, you want to read out some of these? These are some good facts here.
I learned more about the academy. The fact that he started becoming a firefighter at 42 gave me encouragement. Seattle is the second best fire department next to Israel. I question that. So I learned about the fire prep program.
I like the part. This whole session just reinvigorated my desire to join the fire service. I hope that's kind of the sentiment for all of you guys. As we close out this time, is there any question that wasn't answered? Go ahead and put that in the chat. We'll try our best in the next 5 minutes if there's something that we can answer. But if not, go ahead and email us, and we will get a proper answer back to you. And David, if you can put the PowerPoint now in the chat, the PowerPoint that we were utilizing before, you guys could download this, take a look at it, find continuing motivation. And there are some other websites like NTN, National Testing Network, that you guys should begin to peruse if this is your first time. Different cities, different places hiring. And I like what Julie said, go to the internet. Like YouTube has so much content on the fire service of so many different departments. But if Seattle Fire Department is your choice, it's a great window because a lot of what we shared with you, Q3 of next year, that's not too far, guys. Like end of summer or beginning of fall, we're going to open up the application window where you can actually take the written exam. So you can begin that process next year. Let me see, is the PowerPoint in the chat? And then the email address. Let me see, when should I have the CPAT completed for Seattle King County Fire application that are coming up? By fall 2024 or earlier? Hannah, you want to try answer that?
The PowerPoint is in the chat.
Thank you.
Yeah, I just responded to that question. So the CPAT is actually completed during the hiring process at a specific time. We provide candidates with a paid voucher and they complete the CPAT at that time and we use those results. So you don't need to necessarily worry about completing the CPAT beforehand, but it is a great test to take to determine how well you're doing and what you need to improve on. So I encourage you to take it beforehand, but the test to qualify for our hiring process will take place at a later time.
Thank you. Firefighter Rory Agu mentioned that you work as long as you want to be working. Curious what general time on and off looks like in SFD on a week-to-week basis. You want to tackle that, Firefighter?
Yeah. So in terms of what I was saying, we have a lot of chances for overtime, but our general schedule is going to be anywhere from 8 to 9 days a month. And then for me, and for some, we pick up overtime and you can work as much as you want because we have specialty events, we have full schedule, full overtime shifts. We always have some training of some sort like that. So most of it is 8 to 9 days a month, and that is, you can round out to being about twice a week. So.
And one more question for you. Can you pick your fire station after academy?
Yes, you can. After probation, everyone's encouraged to put in for a station, and then from there, you get selected. Now you do bid between your classmates and other people in the department, so you may not get the one you want right away, but eventually you can probably get there. And then I also saw a question about being a driver. If you want to be a driver after 3.5 years, you can be a driver. It's not, the department doesn't select, it's up to you. And that's that's one of the reasons why I like the department. You have a lot of options of what you want to do, and it's not really forced upon you in any way.
Okay, thank you. David, is there a question for Firefighter Burries or Julie? Anything before we close it out here? Let me see. And I can share my contact email, the email address, and I can provide mine, and Hannah can provide her own if necessary. Let's see. Okay. So again, one more thing, Q3 of 2024, not too far away. I remember when I got into the fire department in Los Angeles, it took me about 2 years. This was before graduate school, and I was so driven, I was so motivated. It took some time because that was almost 20 years ago. But for me, I did it with a collective group, people that were just as motivated, and we all came from different backgrounds. And that was what was unique about the fire service. It's not a one blueprint. There's so many different blueprints of success here. And what you bring to the table, the first question I had asked, what industry are you currently in? Remember this, what you're currently doing, you're investing in yourself. It's called transferable skills. So if you're in hospitality, if you're in the trades, you're going to bring a lot of that into the fire department. So, keep that motivation going. You know, really take the time to think it through, talk to your family members and friends. There are different programs in the region that you can be part of. But I just want to say thank you so much for joining us today. Stay connected with us, and I hope you guys have a wonderful evening, and talk to you soon. Take care.